Hi there, my name is Rob Matthew and wanted to say hello from Jefferson County, where I am right now, specifically in Fern Creek. I am not currently an Oldham County resident, but I have one family member still there, and I was there for close to 25 years. We moved here in 1975 to Crestwood, just outside 329, ironically in a development developed in part by one of the landholders of the land off of 53 that was in dispute, and spent a good chunk of my life, including my formative years of my education in Oldham County. And there's some things that I learned in Oldham County that I think have stuck with me because of the excellent education I had. I went first grade through 12th grade to Oldham County schools, Crestwood Elementary, South Oldham Middle School, and then Oldham County High School. I graduated in 1989 with the Honorable Kevin Woozley. We were both part of the last class of 420 people to graduate from a single school in Oldham County. It's the last countywide class. I graduated, was fortunate enough with my education to get a full tuition scholarship to Boston University, where I went and had 4 years, did very well. And I would stack my education up against anybody throughout the country that was there. And that includes people from prep schools in the Northeast and famous schools like Bronx Science in New York. I got a second to none education. And that's why I know that Judge Voegele is pretty upset about outside influence, which I don't consider myself an outsider. Maybe I'm halfway insider. I don't know. But I was going to speak today. I was going to come there and talk about what I've heard. I've been requesting open records, and I filed a couple of open meetings appeals, one of which was denied today because they didn't have enough information to prove that the data center meeting that was held on the 22nd was indeed a meeting about public business. I don't know how if you don't know if a meeting is being held and nobody's taking notes and you can't see it, how are you supposed to know if public business is going on or not? It does seem odd to me that they would have this meeting and then suddenly the site changes. So maybe it's just, tea and refreshments to in some sort of Vulcan mind meld to change their minds. I guess there was no public discussion going on, but I have a feeling we'll find out, and then I'll come out here soon what was actually going on in that meeting. So that's neither here nor there. But I was watching the meeting today with Judge Voegele, and I've got to admit that I have never seen, and I'm coming from someone who has spent a lot of time in Jefferson County working with Jefferson County Public Schools, which I would imagine the opinion of Jefferson County Public Schools here in Oldham County is not the greatest. I know I came out of Oldham County thinking, you hear busing and kids are being driven all over the place and all the schools are lousy. Not true. Okay, that's neither here nor there. I spent a lot of time talking in front of the school board, engaging my school board members and talking to them and fighting against the things that were bad, championing the things that were good. I was active in our PTA. I did a lot of work for the education and attended more than my fair share of school board meetings, which sometimes were lasting 3 or 4 hours on a Monday or Tuesday night. Spent a lot of time there. That's where I learned a lot about open records and government and open meetings. The reason I bring this up is because Jefferson County Public Schools has seven school board representatives. And those 7 school board representatives, I think Jefferson County, I haven't looked it up recently, but it's somewhere around 700,000 people to 1 million people. So we'll just say 700,000 to make the math easy. 700,000 people in Jefferson County. So if you do the math, and I did barely make it through calculus, so I think I can do a little bit of math. 700,000 divided by 7, that's 100,000 constituents that they serve. And I don't know if you're familiar with how much a school board member makes, but I believe it's about $150 a meeting, which there are 2 meetings a month for Jefferson County Public Schools. So $300 a month, what's that, times 12, more than $3,000. It is capped at $6,000, I believe, and they do get some expenses. But it is a job that does not pay much and requires a lot of community engagement because you're serving 100,000 people. And I will tell you that in all my time dealing with Jefferson County schools, I never heard a representative of the school board talk the way that I've heard people in Oldham County talk about their constituents. I've never heard them complain to the level that that the magistrates have here. I've not heard them badmouth people. I've not heard them complain even when they're called out. I mean, it's a part of the elective process. And these are people that are essentially volunteers, just as they are in Oldham County. They get a ton of email because people are really angry about schools. They don't care much about what's going on around town unless it's something big like this data center, but they care about their kids' education. They write, they call, they email, they show up for meetings. I mean, it's rare that you would go to a Jefferson County School Board meeting that there weren't at least 5 or 6 people signed up, and there could be, 24 signed up or more. So when I see the reactions of the magistrates to public comment, public concern, and public outrage, I just want to say, why are you guys here? If public outrage bothers you, quit. Quit your job. Resign now. Let someone take it over. Don't wait till the election. It's clear that some of you don't care, don't want to be there. I mean, one of you said, this is my last time. I'm sorry that you got called out. Maybe you haven't had it rough going for the last however dozen years or 20 years, however long you've been up there, but this is something that people face. And you do get paid a little more than school board members, so I would think you could suck it up and take it. So when I see the ranting that Judge Voegele did, I'm just like, what is wrong with you all? So what I wanted to do is just listen to Judge Vogel's rant, which I have tried not to do the things that he accuses others of saying, he's a liar or, greedy or whatever. There are some things that I am concerned about. And I think that he's not making a good case for himself, nor are many of the magistrates in their handling of this, nor other county government members. But, there is a legitimate outrage here. And I want to comment on this video because it's sort of dovetails into what I wanted to speak about. So it gives me a great opportunity, and it's probably going to take me more than 4 minutes to do it. So here's Judge Vogele's video from comments he made after the first comment period today. It's June 17th, so I wanted to show that and comment along the way. So thanks.
The prospect of a data center in Oldham County has produced a lot of controversy. Some residents appear to have made it their full-time job to oppose a data center anywhere in Oldham County, particularly now since it's moved from 53 to another location. They're still opposed, even though there haven't been any specifications about what the company would like to do. None have been forthcoming. I read where one resident even said that she couldn't sleep at night because of this. I won't comment on that, but I think we all can sleep.
So let me get this straight, Judge Voegele. You're mocking someone for saying they couldn't sleep at night because of this? Maybe that is true. People do worry about things, and I'm sorry you don't understand that. I don't understand why you're pointing to the fact that we don't know what a data center company is going to do yet as somehow an indication that it's a good thing and everything's okay. I would say that probably that's a large chunk of why everybody in the community is upset about this, because we don't know who these people are. They are this weird, obscure company that's popped up, fully formed, being supported by lobbying agencies and a heavily influential PR group that just popped up overnight, and nobody's quite sure who they are. So maybe people are a little suspicious because of that. I don't think that's that hard to understand. And if somebody's losing sleep, it's not up to you, Judge Voegele, to mock them.
The number of inaccurate statements being made and the misinformation that's about is absolutely impossible to keep up with. The level of discourse occurring in relation to this subject is not worthy of Oldham County.
I would agree that this is not up to the level of discourse that is worthy of Oldham County, and by that I mean the magistrates and the things that they have said, including Judge Voegele in this speech about people of Oldham County. There certainly have been a lot of disparaging remarks about the We Are Oldham County group. I've heard comments about myself that have been uttered about me because I'm some apparently left-wing lunatic who doesn't even go here anymore. That's fine. I can take it. And I don't get paid. I don't get any money for doing any of this. I'm kind of doing it because it's interesting to me, and I don't want a data center in my own backyard, and I understand why you don't. I'm happy that Oldham County is here to fight for it. But yeah, in terms of the level of discourse, I would agree, Judge Voegele. Some of the things that you've said and Brent Liketz have said and Bob Dye have said are not up to the level that Oldham County deserves. And unfortunately, it's going to continue in this video, as you'll hear.
Objections were raised to the data center on Highway 53, and we worked with the applicants to have them agree to move to another location, an industrial area between a railroad track and an interstate highway next to a power plant. But yet the objections and attempts to mix apples with oranges keeps coming.
Okay, so I'm confused here. Where did you have this meeting that convinced them not to go to the Highway 53 location? Could it have been that May 22nd meeting that the Attorney General said there's no evidence there was any public business discussed? Inquiring minds want to know. I want to know, and I have a feeling it's going to come out, so stay tuned. But this apples to oranges thing, I mean, moving a potential pollutant, detrimental to property values, lots of bad things in a data center, moving it from location X to location Y, which honestly, location Y happens to be next to one of my parents, who I don't think want this any more than anyone else does. They live in a large neighborhood that's near where this new location is. That's not apples to oranges. It's just a relocated apple. So, yeah, continue, Judge.
I realize that any new development, especially something as significant as a data center, raises some real questions and real concerns. However, I ask you to consider this. The digital infrastructure we rely on every day for work, school, emergency services, communication, does not exist in the abstract. It needs a home. And if our community is to be part of the future and not left behind, we need to, at this point, thoroughly consider and examine this request and see if it fits or doesn't fit with our county.
Okay, this is where it gets me, because I don't, this idea that we have to pursue a data center to move into the 21st century and keep up with the Joneses. Freudian slip there. It's not clear to me why the judge thinks this. We are certainly one of 120 counties in Kentucky, and I don't think anybody really wants this kind of property in their backyard, especially with all the unknowns we have. And we do not know who Western Hospitality Partners is. They are a shadowy company registered under a company that does housewares tied to them, with some real estate agents from the Northeast who have very little that they can share about what's going on with this data center. We don't know who's this data is being built for. Is it being built on spec? Is it going to be built by a company who sells out and says buy? We know nothing really, or maybe we don't know and the judge knows. I mean, I don't want to speculate because that'll really make him mad, but we don't know. And that's why people are upset. That's why they're concerned. That's why they don't want to move into the future, because we don't know what that future is. And we don't know this data center will still be necessary or around in 5, 10, 20 years. Computing has grown by leaps and bounds. We have, in our pockets, we have computers that are better than anything we used 20 years ago in a mainframe system. I mean, it's crazy to think that we know the future and that this is it. There's plenty of evidence from people, like Google, even Apple, Amazon, that tech companies don't really concern themselves too deeply about being good public citizens. So we do need to be aware. And we don't need to move into the 21st century just because, hey, it's nice, shiny, new, high-tech data center. So I'm a little confused here, and I don't understand why the judge feels this way, but it's kind of alarming.
I've said in the past I did not support the Highway 53 project. I've said that I would consider other locations as my vote on this court. Nevertheless, I'm continuing to be lambasted and browbeaten under all kinds of circumstances. This project isn't about profit at the expense of the community. It's about considering long-term investment in our shared future, bringing tax revenue, jobs, and opportunity while working within environmental, safety, and appropriate guidelines. We've been called greedy for being willing to consider this project for the tax revenue it would generate for most of the taxing districts in the county. Surprisingly, no one said we're greedy for trying to locate other projects in Oldham Reserve, but that's the word that's out there. Now, how many people would a data center employ? I'm not actually sure. But if a medical office was built here and it had only 25 employees, I think we'd welcome it to the community and be glad we had it.
Okay, Judge, you do realize that those two scenarios are not analogous. A medical center in the community that only employs 20 or 25 people may also serve 150, 200, 300, 400 or more constituents of the county with a service they need. We have no idea who these data center people are. I'm going to stress this a lot, but they are not here to provide data for Oldham County. That's not the point of this. This could be for the whole entire country, and what kind of benefits they offer truly does matter, including how many people are employed there, and are those jobs coming from the surrounding area. And if you don't know that, I would say those jobs are worth less than bringing doctors, nurses, medical staff to our community to service our community, especially in a time where we're losing those people in many communities. So this is a really bad analogy. And, I'm just a simple Oldham County High School grad, but I would hope that Judge Voegele could understand this is just a stupid comparison.
Last week in the Oldham Era, an article appeared which discussed an airport in Bourbon County, but also mentions our data center in the consideration here under a headline which includes the words secrecy and eminent domain. The article was written by a man who says he's a commercial pilot. At our last meeting, Mr. Nathan Oberg said he's a 30-year airline pilot and captain. He told the court that airline safety is built on strict adherence to policy and procedure. Now, why a commercial pilot in Bourbon County is concerned about a data center in Oldham County is a question I can't answer. But I want to assure everyone here that we are adhering to strict policy and procedure and safety, even if we don't all see it the same way. And I want to assure our community that the words eminent domain are not applicable here. There's never been in our county any eminent domain of any kind, and there won't be any, at least during this administration. Raising the possibility of eminent domain is a complete falsehood intended to frighten casual observers and help generate opposition to a project, all before it goes through the strict policy and procedures that are required to get a fair hearing. The only eminent domain I'm actually familiar with happened in the late 1980s when about 250 people in Louisville, in Edgewood, South Park, Prestonia, Standiford, and Highland Park neighborhoods had their homes taken away from them so UPS could expand its runways in certain buildings. I wonder, as they land their planes at night, if the well-paid pilots look at the lighted runways and buildings below and ever think of those 250 people who lost their homes to storage buildings and runways. Frankly, I doubt it. And I wonder if Mayor Abramson was ever called greedy for backing the expansion of the airport.
Okay, Judge, again, you're losing me. You're referring to airport development that happened 30 years ago, and I am not saying that the people in those neighborhoods didn't have every right to complain, be upset. I believe they were fairly compensated for what happened to their neighborhoods. They already knew that they were living next to an airport, so the people that were living there were familiar with the types of issues that go with an airport. So it's not similar. This is an apples and oranges thing. A data center is not taking over somebody's property. And I know you're talking about eminent domain here, but our concern is that when you start taking over properties near other properties, to put in something like if you were to put in an airport today, on the reformatory property, there probably would be some complaints, and rightfully so. But this is an existing airport. This was UPS. This was 30 years ago, which I'm doing the math. Or more than 30 years ago. It was 35 years ago when I was still in high school, and I would imagine that Nathan probably wasn't far off there. He wasn't a part of UPS then, and I would imagine that probably UPS has hired a few more people since then. Certainly, they have a lot of good, high-paying jobs for the community. They hire a ton of people in college. They provide benefits to people in college. They are a good local employer. And yes, this airport expansion did displace some people. I believe they were adequately or were compensated. I'm sure they don't think it was adequate, but they were compensated for their property. So this is an apples to oranges comparison here. Yes, eminent domain probably won't happen, but it is a concern. And in relation to this, I don't think that the people of the Western Hospitality Partners are losing sleep at night about, I'm sure they're considering us some hicks from Kentucky. I don't think they're losing any sleep. So consider that, Judge Voegele. UPS is a well-respected, well-loved employer here in Louisville. Yes, pilots are well-paid, but pilots are highly trained and have a lot of responsibilities. But there are a ton of other jobs, including someone I know who, out of high school, within a few years, was making $80,000 a year at UPS. So those are great jobs. We don't even know who this data center is, how many people they're truly going to employ. So if you want to start comparing those and you want to start bad-mouthing people who work for UPS, that seems like a sad thing to do because that's probably a large chunk of people in your county. And yes, those people were displaced. Yes, those people were upset. In fact, I found an article where they're talking about the morality of the mayor in a 1989, April 17, 1989 article from the Courier-Journal where there's an editorial about that. So I'm sure there were some disparaging remarks thrown at the magistrates and thrown at the Metro Council or whatever they were called at the time, and the mayor. And that's fine. I mean, people had a right to be angry. But also, you can argue the expansion was good for the community, as I think has been borne out over the last 36 years. So it's just really a bad comparison.
Additional tax revenue in Oldham County will help all our taxes units if possible. I'm going to go through some of the things that might happen. I say might because nothing's guaranteed, but nothing happens till someone has an idea or does something. We may be able to limit future property tax increases from all the districts in the county. There's an ability for fiscal court to revenue share with LaGrange and Crestwood, Pewee Valley, Orchard Grass, Goshen, and River Bluff. If we get money as a court, we could certainly give some to those needy cities to help them for their residents. Now, we might have more police officers, actually. It costs $200,000 a year to put one policeman on the street. We've had break-ins at night, people coming out here, stealing from cars, causing all kinds of problems. We generally have about 5 officers on at night. They cannot cover the entire county. Now, if we have an extra $1 million from somewhere, we could hire 5 more police officers. We may be able to relieve some congestion here. People talk about traffic. How about building some new county roads if we had a little extra money? We might need some guardrails along dangerous roads. Put them there in the past. Use county money on State Highway 393 because someone was seriously hurt by the Oldham County Community Center years ago. Some people objected to me spending county money on the state highway. The person who wound up in the hospital for 3 months was very appreciative, though. A lot of our roads in this county, state roads, are deteriorated. The road to to Westport is an absolute mess. It takes $200,000 to pave a mile of county of state secondary road. We can pave that road to Westport with $800,000. We might have some widened roads and bike lanes. How about some new night lighting for the South Oldham Little League? We've got 700 families there that have asked for night lighting help. We can't give it to them right now. We don't have enough to go around. Some people have come to me and said they want an ice skating rink in Oldham County. Their kids love to ice skate, but they can never get on the ice at Iceland. It's always full. We might be able to have an ice skating rink and community program for kids here that do a lot of things, bowling and ice skating and other things. We went through the indoor pool idea a while ago, and I wanted one, but I lost out, and we've got it covered, or don't have a covered pool. We've got an outdoor pool. It's only good for 90 days a year. That's all. We spend a lot for 90 days. Kids have fun, but we have our high school swimming teams go to Jefferson County at 6 in the morning, I believe, is what I've been told, to practice. Basketball arena, a number of people have asked for that. Right here on this court said we need a multi-floor basketball arena. We could use new restrooms at Wendell Park. We could do some waterway improvements at Harrods Creek, Floyd's Fork, Curry's Fork, and Darby Creek. If you have a daughter that's a teacher in the school, if she's in elementary or middle school, she gets an allocation, I believe, from the school board for classroom supplies, but probably winds up spending $300 or $400 or $500 more of her own money to pay for classroom supplies. How about giving all our teachers $1,000 a year for classroom supplies? We could use some increases for public employees. Some are not that well paid. A lot of people think, oh boy, public employees, well, we struggle to keep people on board here, believe me. The Extension Service has bought 22 acres on Highway 22. They bought property out there. They want to make a nice extension facility. We have hundreds of families in this county that are involved in the extension facilities. We just built a new library at Goshen, but South Oldham has had to go without a new library. How about it, South Oldham? Would you like the same thing that Goshen has? You may get it someday if the library board had a few extra dollars. LaGrange needs full-time firemen. We don't have it. They want it, but they're capped on how much money they can collect. They can't get it. I've even somebody asked for a riding stable. I guess you can go to Iroquois Park and ride horses if you want to, but horses are a big part of Oldham County. We might be able to have a riding stable here someday. Now, these are just ideas that came off the top of my head, frankly, and the things that people have asked me for. But when we say no data center here, no more money, okay, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it might work.
Well, that is an exhaustive list of things that might be funded by the potential tax revenue of this data center that we know nothing about, and we have a bunch of empty promises from about the revenue that will be raised. So, interesting. I mean, these are a lot of good, worthy projects, and as you'll hear later, Magistrate Voegele points out that there's actually some money to do these things. So, if they're important to the judge, maybe he should raise those at this time. But this is a ridiculous, it's a litany of things that, hey, we could do this if we just had the data center. Now, judge needs to decide what is true here. Either they don't know enough to really say whether this is good or bad, or they do know enough. But show me the money, or as they say in All the President's Men, follow the money. This is why people are suspicious. You've come up with all these reasons that are coming directly from Run Switch PR about here's all the benefits you're going to have, with a big asterisk that should be about the size of Jefferson County, about we don't really know what the revenue is going to be until it happens. So Build It and They Will Come works for a movie. I'm not sure that Build It and the Money Will Come works in Oldham County on a pipe dream from a company nobody knows, from out of state, with no players locally and no known company. It's a big leap to get there for most of the people who are reasonable thinkers. And that's part of the reason I think why people are like, what else do they know? And are raising suspicions about what the magistrates and the judge executive are doing, because there's a lot of unknowns here, and yet they don't seem real discouraged about those unknowns. And I think that's a big concern, because there are plenty of other businesses that could go in Jefferson County Oldham County, and should be in Oldham County. There are things that, I have like 5 things here in Jefferson County. I can go to like 3 Walmarts, 4 Targets, a bunch of Kohl's. There's a lot here within short driving distance of me that you could fire a gun across Oldham County and you can't hit. So those are things that service people, that provide jobs, that provide value to life. A data center does not do that. So if he wants to recruit people and wants to recruit businesses, why go after these people? Go after businesses that people like and trust, will have deep community ties, not this stuff. If you want to raise tax revenue, don't go after this pipe dream of, that blowing smoke up your butt about supposed benefits that nobody really knows. Because again, who in the heck is Western Hospitality Partners? Who are they servicing? How long are they going to be here? What is this data center going to be? There's no knowns here, and they are not going to tell you, and they don't want to share any of that. They want to get in, build it, get out, is my impression, and let someone else deal with it and deal with the aftermath. And I will bet you that if they start polluting, or they start, anything happens, that they'll happily pay the fines once this thing is built, because there won't be fines in place to be enough. So that's why people are upset with this. And I don't think, he probably does realize, the judge realizes this, but his feelings and the magistrate's feelings are hurt because people are pushing back on this, and they're seeing this as some grand victory. And I don't think anybody sees it that way in Oldham County. And quite frankly, I don't think anybody would see this in any other county, the 119 counties in Kentucky, if it was built next to them. There is too much unknown here, and there's too much speculation about the supposed benefits that the judge executive does not know, cannot know, and if he does know, he should certainly be spilling it, and he's not. So
let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't know, pardon me, I'm continuing here. Now, twisted comments are being made on social media have led some people to call me a liar, say I have no interest in protecting the county, and I'm getting paid under the table. I've seen that. And I'm just an illiterate, good old boy who's been here for too long and needs to get out as fast as anybody can get me out of office, and that won't be too much more. And I find these things that people say on the internet, but they never come and say them right to your face at fiscal court for some reason. We're people here too. We live here. Now, people here are saying, what's wrong with us? Why don't these people hear us? We elected you. You owe us. We're going to vote you out. Okay? Do it. Run for office if that's what you think you have to do.
Judge, I'm not going to call you any of those things. But I do think when there's such a lack of transparency in what you're doing, when things like open record requests are denied, when you make snide comments back about people who are exercising their public right to request information, when other people in your government offices do the same thing, what you're saying to them is that you're essentially saying, I don't want you to know what I'm doing, which leads people to think there's a reason for that. And so if you don't want people to think that you have something shady going on or something shifty going on, maybe do things like follow open meetings laws. Stop having closed sessions that are not legal. Stop going into meetings where, you have plausible deniability about being invited to them, like the one on May 22nd, where it's pretty apparent that public business was discussed, but can't yet be proven, which I suspect, again, will change. Stop doing things that make you look bad. It's not that hard. It's not hard to follow open records laws. It's not hard to follow open meetings laws. It's not hard to research any of those things. It's not. I've seen it happen. Mistakes get made, but you keep making them. And those mistakes make you look bad. They make people think, maybe he's lying. Maybe he's not telling the truth. Maybe he is just a good old boy. Maybe he's everything that's been said here. So, get over your thin skin, stand outside and look from outside at what's happening inside in this meeting, other meetings, meetings that the public is not allowed to attend. Think about that. That's why people are suspicious. That's why people are angry and upset with you. You're creating the situation that you claim to be upset about. So do better. And yeah, I think people should run against you. I think they have every reason to be upset. And if you feel like you don't want to do it anymore, quit. All of you need to quit. If you're tired of hearing these comments and you can't have no backbone to do it and deal with it, quit. Somebody will step in for you. Okay? So quit commenting like this. Quit pointing to it and say, oh, they're mean to me. You're bringing this on yourself. Yes, maybe you didn't know a data center was coming, or maybe you didn't understand or know there was going to be this backlash, but you have to deal with it. That is your job.
But we hear you, and we're moving forward with strict adherence to our policy and procedures, okay? And the regulations are being formed. We're getting it together. I won't say we weren't caught. Some people say, well, you knew about this in November. We did not know about it. The word came up, and it was a word that's never been mentioned in our county before, and people automatically thought that we should be 100% up to speed in the next 30 days. Well, we weren't.
Okay, I won't say that this is a lie, but I do wonder how much truth there is to the fact that nobody was aware of data centers until this year, and nobody had a clue what was going to come, because there is definite email traffic going from developers to OCD going back to at least May of last year about data centers in Oldham County and different properties in Oldham County. So I can't believe that nobody on fiscal court was aware that there was an interest, certainly with data centers being big news. And, it's clear that they certainly were caught off guard about the frustration and the concerns about data centers. And I would imagine, like any politician, they probably looked at data centers, said, ooh, high tech, ooh, coming our way, ooh, big money, ooh, big time. And probably didn't realize this was an issue. I imagine most people in Oldham County, until the We Are Oldham County people started speaking up and saying, hey, look at what's happening in other places. Probably most people wouldn't have even thought about it. It's like, oh, hey, a new business, 100 new jobs, or whatever it is. So I can believe that. But this idea that they were caught unaware, I think the being caught unaware is being caught unaware to the blowback. Again, probably understandable, because this is a new thing coming hot and heavy all across the country. But still, take the L here and say, we didn't know. And quit getting angry at people because they're pushing back on it.
Now, from the very beginning of this data center, we've been told this right here: follow the process. However, it seems as though the people who said follow the process are now angry because we're following the process and not called a special meeting outside the county's regular process to rush a data center moratorium in here, when we know full well there's only one application out there and we're going to deal with it. And I realize we're not flying an airplane here, but we are following strict policy and procedure given the circumstance.
From what I gather, the issue here is not just about following the process, but the fact that there's not a clear process, regulations, or anything else to guide what is happening here. And people are very much afraid that the people who want to push these data centers in here are going to exploit that to the fullest and push something through before, we can close the barn door. So, it's good that you're trying to follow the process, but if there's not a good process in place for whatever reason, then just following the process isn't going to get you anywhere until you can stop and address what your process actually needs to be.
More than 100 years ago, former President Teddy Roosevelt was having a conflict with a certain member of his cabinet who wanted to cave into opposition on an issue at a certain time. Roosevelt did not. Roosevelt made a comment that's gone down in history. He said he could carve more backbone out of a banana than he could out of that particular individual.
I guess Judge Voegele doesn't realize, in all this talk about data centers, that we do actually have access to something called Google. So I decided to look up that quote, and I came to a website, the South Dakota Humanities Council, And the facts and I believe the quote are all wrong in what, unsurprisingly, what David Voegele has presented. And I'm just going to read here from this, it's the back end of this article on the South Dakota Humanities Council. It's about Oliver Wendell Holmes, who was a Supreme Court justice appointed by Theodore Roosevelt, not a cabinet member. And the issue was not him caving, but let me just read this to you. Oliver Wendell Holmes' immense reputation and record of achievement appealed to President Theodore Roosevelt, who told colleagues he wanted to place a man like Holmes on the Supreme Court, which he did in 1902. At the time of his appointment, Holmes was already 61 years old, but that didn't deter Roosevelt, who exhibited unabashed admiration for the Civil War hero. Roosevelt's admiration for Justice Holmes, however, soon faded when Holmes rendered opinions in antitrust cases that rankled the president to the point that he denounced Holmes at a press conference. He declared his disappointment and said, quote, "I could carve out of a banana a judge with more backbone than Holmes possesses." Holmes survived Roosevelt's criticism. He proceeded to serve on the court until retirement in 1932 at the spry age of 90. I think we could argue, especially given context of recent Supreme Court, that it requires a lot of backbone to oppose a president who appoints you. And that's really what the Supreme Court should be doing. They should be rendering based on the law and not based on favors to someone who appointed them. So, yeah, it's just a bad quote, misquote, wrong circumstance, but Judge Voegele threw it out there anyway, I guess.
Right now, it'd be pretty easy for all of us here sitting on the fiscal court to cave in, say, you're right, we quit, go ahead, do it the way you want to do it. We're going to stop this right now, never consider it, acknowledge our mistake, and then everything would be fine. Everybody'd say, okay, you guys grew up, the world is all right again, we can all go on. But that's not the way to do it. Although you say you are Oldham County, the fiscal court is the elected body that represents the entire community of Oldham County. You're a group within Oldham County, but you're not Oldham County. You claim 4,000 members, that we've got 70,000 residents that live here. And they live here. We don't know who's in your 4,000 member group. I suspect there's people all over the place, more than Oldham County. We've never been told.
Hey, Judge, I freely admitted that I am from Jefferson County, but I also once lived in Oldham County, and I do have an interest in this. But where is it again that the Western Hospitality Partners are from?
You want us to slam the door on a data center without considering any more information yet to be put forward by a specific applicant. But there are residents in our county who are willing to listen and make a decision after all the information has been presented and the regulations discussed and created. The fiscal court is trying to balance the entire county and its future among those who are willing to listen and those whose minds are already made up. The process is being followed, and that's what we're going to do. At the next meeting, we will approve the moratorium, I'm sure, without the AT&T amendment. They're willing to do away with it. But that's where we are. We're going to make regulations, and the regulations will be discussed, and there will be no data center in this county until all of the regulations are put together, firm, solid, secure, safe for everybody, and then we'll make a final decision on going forward or stopping the whole thing. So that's all I've got to say about this. Thank you for listening. I know it's been long and perhaps hard to listen to.
Judge, the county has millions of dollars in surplus. If you wanted to get any of those things done, we could have already had it done, and we did it without data center money.
Well, that's true, but
if you wanted anything on that list done,
right now, Mr. Woolsey.
If you wanted anything on that list done, sir, it would have been done because we have millions of dollars in surplus. So to add on all of this stuff is just
Mr. Woolsey, you
ridiculous.
weren't. I didn't recognize you to speak, Mr. Woolsey. You and Mr.
Sorry, your time was up a long time ago. So.
No. You know, Mr. Woolsey, I'm the county judge here. You're not.
We're very well that you're a county
right.
judge. You remind us all the time.
The fact of the matter is, we're considering a new police station right now. It would take half the revenue, half the resources of this fiscal court. The court has not decided on that, and yes, we do have money in surplus here, but these people are all cautious here. These are ideas, and that's it.
Okay, this is the end of his speech, and I want to call out Kevin Woosley for pointing out that apparently rightfully that there is surplus money that could be spent on some of these projects that Voegele is interested in. And Voegele made the comment about they need to be cautious. We have cautious people. Well, it sounds like to me that's what all of Oldham County is right now. They're cautious. They're worried. They're concerned about what's going to happen if a data center comes into their community. So don't pat yourself on the back for being cautious and then chastise other people for the same. But it truly is fascinating to me to see all of this happening in Oldham County, to see the lack of transparency, to see just the outrage and the anger being pushed back from politicians who really, don't seem to have a backbone or the ability to admit they didn't know, they're wrong, or there's a point here. They just seem to be taking offense at everything and letting comments that, regrettably, some people are speculating, some people are saying some negative, some nasty things that aren't true, I'm sure. But people are upset, and that's not everybody in this group. That's not everybody in the county. There are people who are concerned, and those concerns need to be acknowledged. And I just, when we talk about backbone, it takes a lot more backbone to say you're wrong, to apologize, to be the better person in a situation if you feel like you're being wronged by someone who has legitimate beef, who is your constituent, then maybe treat them with some grace instead of what we keep seeing on Oldham County Fiscal Court. So anyway, that's it. If you made it this far, you're like me, you have no life, and I feel sorry for you, but I appreciate you listening to this point, so have a good evening.